Thanks so much, Hayden. And I just wanted to say thank you, Alicia, for joining us at TransitCon today. And thank you for everyone in the audience who's joined TransitCon today. It's really been a fantastic room. My name is Alvarado. I work at WSP, an engineering firm, as our national practice manager for transportation and mobility communications. So clearly, with that, there have been a lot of my role models in this room, and none bigger than Alicia Trost in front of me. If you haven't come across her on Twitter, which I'm sure most of you have, she's the Chief Communications Officer at BART. And I think Hayden said it best as she is leading the way in industry communications. And I'm excited to just sit here and learn more and then have a little bit of a discussion. So with that, welcome.
Thank you so much. What a great introduction. I am so ecstatic to be here and speaking to my people. And I also want all of you to know just how much I learn from you and steal from you. I literally search transit Twitter very frequently to come up with new buzz terms and what are people saying about transit. And I will literally search fiscal cliff like once a week right now to see, what can I learn from what you all are saying. So keep up that great work. No, I'm not abandoning Twitter. We can talk about that later. But yeah, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to start my presentation. Hold on one second.
Catch that, Alan? Transit Twitter.
Transit Twitter. All right. Here we go. Okay. So my path to transit, everyone has their own story, right? So my path to transit, I think everything I've done in my career literally got me to this point. I know I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be at BART. 10 years in. I started my professional career working for local TV news. And so I really learned how to storytell and like what it takes to have a good soundbite and, how is the news shaped and, what makes a good public agency when it comes to, talking with the news and talking to the public. And then I went to work for the state Senate as a communications director for the Senate President Pro Tem. And I learned all about policy. And I learned that I was a total policy junkie. And I just didn't know that until I was exposed to it at the Senate. And I love this picture because it's baby Alicia. Like, look how cute and young I look. And I'm flipping through the state budget bill. We would be in these marathon sessions where we would have to literally be in the Capitol all night trying to get a budget passed within the deadline. And it was actually that night that I started to do on-camera interviews for the first time. When you work for a lawmaker, your whole job is to get them on camera. But they were all caucusing all night. And it was just one of those like where the deadlines pass and you have to stop the clock so that there's a budget on time. And so I had to go on camera and talk about that. And I didn't realize I was like a soundbite machine. All of this work that I had done taught me how to do it without me even really knowing it. And that's when this job at BART came up to be the spokesperson at BART. I just knew it was absolutely perfect for me because it was going to be heavy on the policy, lots of public scrutiny, lots of on-camera interviews. I knew what I was getting into. But most importantly is something that had happened in my life. I was in a horrible car accident when I worked at the Capitol. And I hated driving. I really hated driving because you can see here what I went through. I was the driver of this car and someone on a motorcycle just T-boned me, ran the stop sign in a tiny small street in Alameda, California. He unfortunately died on the scene. And I got into an ambulance and I didn't know what was going on until I got, to the trauma hospital and I can hear them talking about me. And I'm going to show you a picture super fast because it's kind of gross, but because I really want you to experience like the trauma and like the PTSD I have while like having to drive. This was my face. I'm going to clearly move on from that because it's gross, but I want you to see when I see that, I feel it to this day. And so realizing I could go work for transit and no longer have to drive because I can now commute via train to the office every day and learn more about transit and not need to drive. Look at how happy I am. And on the train, you can see it in my eyes, the joy of being on that train heading to work. And yes, I strategically decided to use a picture of me with a mask, because it's okay to still wear masks on train, and I want to lift that up. We shouldn't be shameful of it. We should be proud of it. If you don't want to wear a mask, fine, but it's something that I strongly support. So I wanted to use that picture, on purpose. And so when I first started at BART, it wasn't like I was who I am today. Believe me, I was a young woman with tiny, cute baby children, and boy, was I treated that way. I don't think anyone listened to me. I think everyone was just happy that there was someone they could throw on camera to take the blame for things. My ideas just weren't really appreciated, and I just kept grinding away at work. And what happened was I fell in love with Twitter and transit Twitter specifically. And I started to do amazing things. And I was taught a lot of really great how to use Twitter. I was taught by Taylor Huckabee, who now works at Caltrain. I never take credit for things that other people taught me. And what it did is it really helped me find my voice. And it really gave me that advocacy work internally to go fight for a better customer experience. And it took 10 years. I mean, I almost quit so many times. I was so miserable at BART. But when we had a new general manager came on board, somehow I'd finally built enough of a reputation that people from the outside were talking about Alicia Trost. And finally inside, they started to listen. And so I became part of the executive, that C-suite. I got the role of chief communications officer. And then I was finally in that Monday morning meeting that I was dying to be in. I wanted to be at that meeting with all the men. And yes, they are all men. We're working on that. There are a few women executives. I shouldn't say it's all men, but for the most part, it's all men. And many of them don't even have kids. And so that in and of itself is also an issue, because I think you need to have children to be a good transit leader, because it gives you that compassion, empathy, and then you also learn how to target the next generation of transit riders, right? And so I just slowly found my voice. And along the way, I've just done a lot of listening of what it takes to be a good transit leader. And this quote is so powerful, and it's such an aha moment for me, and hopefully for all of you. The reason why I get so frustrated with BART and transit in general is because for years, transit agencies have been managing the message and not working the problem. So Russ Arnold told me that. He works at Sound Transit. It was like light bulb went off. I need to stop managing the message, and I need to start working the problem. And so that's what I started to do, in those Monday morning meetings with all of the big executives, was like, well, instead of just messaging why things are the way they are, let's actually start fixing them. Let's break down the silos and actually fix them. So when I think about what is BART's communication strategy, I try to get it onto one slide. I'm so proud of myself for doing that. One, it's taking transparency to a whole new level, something not expected from a government agency. It's being unapologetically candid. And the single source of truth. I want people to come to us when they're looking for BART news. And that's not what it was like when I first started working at BART. It was, you went to the news to learn about BART, what was going on at BART. Now people know, just go to BART Twitter, go to BART's website, go to BART's app. You will get the information that you need, hopefully from us first before someone else. And then another big thing that I learned along the way was stop creating content that is based on, what's coming up at the board level and what projects are due. And instead, listen to what our writers and the public are talking about and build content based on that. And then, yes, you weave in those project deadlines and what the board is coming before the board, but have it all ready to go so that when somebody asks about something on Twitter or any platform now, you actually have something all packaged up so that you can perfectly play on that. And then, by the way, there's a nice timestamp because you are dialed in with what's going on with your agency. And you can say, hey, we're actually taking this to the board next week. And you have a whole story to tell with it. My other big thing, and I bet everyone listening agrees with this, you just don't know how to do it yet, is we have to scrub the planner speak from our public facing content. I love planners. I call them the thought leaders of our industry. I truly believe that. I listen to everything planners say, but the language they use should only be used, internally, or when applying for a grant that you're looking for those buzzwords, but not necessarily with the public, because what that does is it doesn't connect with people that don't ride transit already. And then I love trying to show what responsive government's like. And I have some examples of that later. And that it's okay to be values driven. So many transit agencies are afraid to have an opinion or to have a value, but really our board adopts strategic plans, and our board, or at least the majority of your board, sort of tells you what values you have. And so you have permission to be values driven. It's okay for a government agency to be values driven, and you actually have policies in place, hopefully, that allows you to voice those values publicly. And then I love to create joy around transit, and hopefully you've seen that, through some of the work BART's been doing. And I love to break the script. I'm going to get into that later, but really it's doing something that just isn't expected from transit or a government agency. And then lastly, like so important, stop gaslighting. I mean, if you can do a reaction emoji, how many of you have actually been gaslit by a transit employee? And I was like an offender of this, where someone would ask about a policy, I'd go ask the subject matter expert why, they would tell me, and I would provide that response. And literally what I was doing was like not validating someone's concern and telling them why it was the way it was. And really that's gaslighting. And so the moment I realized to stop gaslighting, I became a better spokesperson and transit employee. So I love this, and I love Clipper Bay Pass, but this is the perfect example of like, this sentence just like drives me nuts. Clipper Bay Pass is a pilot program of an institutional pass to advance multimodal fare integration in the Bay Area. Y'all are killing me. None of this makes sense. Go read this to your spouse, cousin, grandma. They'll be like, I don't understand one word in that entire sentence. So instead, this is what I would call Clipper Bay Pass. It's an unlimited transit pass being tested to help make writing and paying for transit in the Bay Area easier and more affordable. Or it's a prepaid all-you-can-ride pass for trips on buses, trains, and ferries. Now, come on, people. That is so much easier to understand. So why do you keep writing things like this in this industry? Stop it. Like literally take every word, if you have to, word by word, and change it to something that people can understand. Something that's really getting under my skin right now, and I hear it a lot at APTA, is they want to actually change the name of our industry to a mobility industry. And it just drives me nuts, because I think most of the public thinks of the word mobility as like something involving their cell phone and not transit. And so I just wanted to throw that idea out there that I just think we can do better. If we're going to reimagine ourselves, and I understand that many agencies are now offering so much more than what traditionally was considered transit, is it that we need a whole new name, or do we need to reimagine what transit means to our communities? Changing the name of our industry isn't really going to help, and certainly changing it to something that most people don't really connect with transportation or transit, I don't think it's going to work. So I'm dying to know what you all think. You can drop it in the chat or email me or hit me up on Twitter, because I would love to know. And so one of the things that is stuck. So another thing that we like to do at BART is trying to minimize rider pain points through improved communication. Like, I don't control the running the trains. I don't even control wayfinding. I wish I did. I wish every single sign and poster and map, most of the maps come through me, have to come through me, but they don't. But what I realized over my 10 years is that I can sort of like insert myself where I can, and using the tools that I do have control over. So one of the ideas here in this visual example is for a Millbrae station. If you've used BART and Caltrain, you know that Millbrae is a hot mess, like level 10, probably the worst possible customer experience you could ever offer transit riders. Just being brutally honest, because that's what we do. And so one of the ideas is like, what if we made a sign that showed you step by step what you have to do to get off one system and pay for it, and then get on another system and pay for it? Maybe we should actually show it through, just posters or decals. These are really cheap. They're not permanent wayfinding. You don't need a lot of money. So like, let's do it. So these are the types of things that I'm trying to work on at BART, and that I encourage you all to go back to your agencies to also work on. Also, little things like using social media to share rider guides. We all assume that people know how to use our trip planners and things like that. Well, they don't. Another thing is more line diagram maps. So like, folks love line diagram maps, whether your system uses them or not. they make them and share them on Twitter or on any platform. So why are we not leaning into this? If your public is saying they want a line diagram map because they think it'll be easier to use, and big shout out to Fern, who, if you don't know Fern and don't follow Fern, you should. I love them. And we do look at their ideas and then we actually implement them. Everyone knows the BART system map. It's iconic. Part of me, it took me years to be like, we can't do something else. I love our map. Well, guess what? We're trying new things because the public seems to want them and seems to care about them, and it might be easier. And so Jay Satay from BART worked on this. We rolled this out at SFO. Another great example is, oh my goodness, a sign actually uses the word downtown Oakland and Berkeley and Richmond. There's no station that's called downtown Oakland or just Berkeley. There is one for Richmond, but the idea is like, tell people like the towns they're going to and use that in your signs. It's not that like shocking, but when you have these policies but we've never done that, you have to just kind of get over yourself. So super fun thing to be looking forward to in the Bay Area is we are finally getting a consistent overarching among all transit agencies wayfinding and mapping system that's going to come with a suite of new maps and signs and digital displays. And so I got to build a bus stop as part of like the brainstorming of launching this program. We're working with Applied Wayfinding, who are like amazing at what they do. And I have complete faith that what's going to come out of it, I'll be ready to say, all right, maybe the BART map isn't it? Maybe we can do better. And so just something to look forward to and to keep your eye on. So another thing I love to do is like when I hate something and I just can't seem to get it changed at BART, what I start to do is I use tweets from the public and I start to track them and catalog them in our customer management system. We use Salesforce. So here's some great examples of people who got burned by the excursion fare. You enter and exit the same station, no matter how much time is in between, and you get charged $6.40. It's horrible. I've never been able to get it changed at BART until people just started to tweet about it. A lot. It was happening all the time. So I started to catalog it, bringing it up, showing the data. I just wouldn't let it go. And then finally, our board members are paying attention. They want to change it. We finally took it to the board and they basically have adopted that we want to give a grace period for the excursion fare. So now we're waiting for Clipper and Cubic to help implement it. But the idea is I could not have done this had it not from our writers complaining about it and me turning it into usable data. That's not to say I always get what I want. So here's another one of my favorite folks on Twitter, Cedar. If you don't follow Cedar, you should follow Cedar. And they tweeted about something that you all probably hate also. It's when your real-time arrival displays on your platform show all kinds of superfluous messages, all kinds of them, PSAs, just things that are not related to the arrival of train. And when we got our new general manager, I made a big play. I was like, this is what you should do on the day that we roll you out as a new general manager. You should announce some changes. And one of them should be that we are going to prioritize only train arrival information, and that is it on those displays. Well, I just didn't get my way. I was told, no, we're not quite there yet. Those announcements are really important to many of our stakeholders, blah, 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 blah. And that we were going to try to move towards this side-by-side messaging. We have one station with them, which is not enough. We're trying to roll them out. There's some supply chain issues. So the idea is that on one side, we'll always have train arrival information. On the other side will be the rest of it. I still think we should just, until we get these rolled out everywhere, we should only have train arrival times, but I don't always get what I want, and that's okay. And sometimes you have to compromise. So I stopped screaming and yelling about it. And now we're just waiting to roll these out. So both Cedar and Fern are great examples of people who ride our system all the time. They love transit, but they also hold us accountable. They're not going to just like be our spokespersons and say wonderful things about us all the time. That's not the way that relationship works. But we've really leaned into some of our biggest fans on transit, and we've even invited them to our headquarters to learn more about them. They also tend to be a lot younger, which I think is amazing. So we did welcome, everyone, we call them the Transit Twitter Besties. I think they call themselves that. But the idea is if your agency isn't inviting some of your most frequent riders and passionate people about transit in and hearing from them, you're doing something wrong. Another great example of this sign that I'm not sure how well you can see it, but literally it's a fat BART logo. There's this huge BART logo taking up most of the space of the sign. And then a scrolling, the next train will arrive. You're like, when will it arrive? When will it arrive? Because you're waiting for the scroll. I literally took this tweet, sent it to a few people, and I think within like 3 days they had fixed it. So sometimes you just have to ask. So also, if you're not in charge of any of this at your agency, that doesn't mean you can't just go make the ask. All I had to do was make the ask and it was literally fixed. It's like, hallelujah. It's these little tiny things that really show how much your agency is listening. So here's kind of like the perfect example of gaslighting and probably what would have happened before. So somebody pointed out like, hey, where are these benches? There were literally benches there last week and now they're not. I need somewhere to sit. And I'm like, son of a, because we all know why those benches were probably removed, right? Like I already know. I'm like, what's going on here? But sometimes there are like, maybe there's like a project going on, or they're going to clean something, or they got new benches. I don't always jump to the wrong conclusion. So my first response I said was, hey, we're checking in with staff to find out what's going on. And then I added that value statement. Like one, we know there are benches by the bus area, which is like a lot like further down the road. But like, this is a waiting area and there should be somewhere to sit. Like I just said it. I'm like, I'm going to put that statement out there that we don't agree with removing them. We're going to find out what's going on. So yeah, it turned out a police officer asked that they be removed and they were removed. Nobody checked in with anyone. And so yes, we got them back like literally within a week. And so that back in the day, I would have said something like, oh, but there's benches over in the bus area. If you need to wait, just wait over there. And then when your ride comes, have them go over there. Like that's literally what I would have said. I would have just listened to the subject matter expert. And now I've learned, don't do that. Pick up the right phone and go demand that those damn benches be put back. Also, this is another great tip is like when you're rolling out improvements, like really think about how you frame up the improvement. When BART made the awesome announcement that we were going to reopen the underground restrooms that had been closed since 9/11, I made sure in the media when we first even made the announcement that it wasn't just about reopening the restrooms, about this new day and offering a new amenity. I made it specifically about it's for families and families with young children, because this is at the height of the pandemic. Well, not the height, I should say, like when we're trying to welcome people back. And my idea here was like, when I'm reaching out to families specifically, that's strategic. These are the types of, non-commute oriented rides that we need. And we want to show that those with families like need somewhere to go. And so I made sure that we did that. And we decided to not just open them, but to go so bold. Toilet paper ribbon cutting. One of them was held literally on February 2nd, 2022, all the twos, because you go number 2 in the toilet. And that we were going to literally take toilet paper and cut it, and we were going to live stream it, and we were going to have all these cute little social media signs that we were going to go all out, because it was showing that it was not business as usual. So we live streamed it, and I kid you not, we got 2 million free impressions from that live stream. Because what happened was actually the total conservative right-wingers picked it up and were making fun of us for celebrating the opening of a toilet, which to me was exactly what we wanted. Like, thank you for sharing with everyone that we now have restrooms, because you know what? People need restrooms. And if the entire country now knows that BART has restrooms because you want to make fun of us, wonderful. Thank you. Let me send you a thank you card. And another tip just for you communicators, if you're going to live stream, one live stream, we had like a slate, like this 19th Street restroom reopening. And the other one, we let it just run before it started. And I was like doing this, I was like dancing in front of the camera and doing the little social media cards I made to kind of like draw you in. That's the one that got the 2 million impressions. Whereas the other one where we had the slate, like people didn't stop on their Twitter thread to watch because it's a boring ass slate. So just a great tip, just leave that camera rolling, because they're like, wait, they're live. What are they doing? I see a microphone. Something's about to happen. Also, like, how are you messaging your modernization? So the 19th Street station, when we were about to open it and have the press release, I kid you not, like staff like literally took what the project told them that they did, and we're just gonna like copy that. And it was, well, there's a new station agent booth and new fare gates. And I was like, oh, we can do so much better than that. There's new glass railings and fare barriers, like people, a fare barrier, like what? No, there's no more hidden corners, because we broke down all the tile and we replaced it with glass. And you know what that does is it makes the staircases feel safer and they're cleaner and they won't smell like piss. And they're like, we can't say that. I'm like, yes, we can. Anyone that has used a staircase in a transit station knows they often smell like urine. But guess what? We reopened the restroom and now you can completely see through that stairwell. So people aren't going to be peeing in it anymore. And so it's sort of like taking the risk. And so don't lead with that there's a new station agent booth and new fare gates, which by the way, look exactly the same as the old fare gates. So no one's even going to understand that they're new. And instead talk about the new glass railings or the no hidden corners, and that there's an open floor concept, which is the expanded free area. And that instead of just saying new LED lighting, which is what the press release originally said, I made them change it that it's the brightest station in the system. So just think about the messaging behind all the modernization you all are working on. And then, you know what we did during the pandemic? Everyone bought a bike, and a lot of people bought really heavy, big bikes. And so what is your system doing to embrace bikes? When we rolled this out, what we did was we measured every single elevator in the system, and we posted a document so that people with really big bikes will know in advance if the elevator will fit their bike. And we just rolled this out and it went completely viral because we were just saying we love bikes. And guess what? A lot of people love bikes. So sort of take what people are talking about and build content off of it. You'll be surprised that you have a lot more talking points than you realize, even if there's not anything new. Now we had this new elevator dimension guide, but we probably could have rolled this out even without that, just talking about all the ways we're embracing people bringing bikes on BART. Another thing I love to do is like finally take on tough topics like sexual harassment on transit, which I think is transit's dirty little secret that we all know it's happening, but no one seems to talk about it, or at least from the agency point of view. So we launched the Not One More Girl initiative, which takes on sexual harassment and gender-based violence, not just harassment. And so we've started to collect the data. We changed a lot of policy. We're teaching safe bystander intervention. And actually we did a survey after this initiative launched, and 36% of a random sample survey said that they felt safer riding BART knowing we had this initiative. That is so powerful. 36% said they felt safer just because of an initiative that we really communicated greatly about a topic that is extremely relevant right now and always has been with transit. So I encourage you to go to bart.gov/notonemoregirl and look more into this initiative. We're rolling out phase 2 in the coming weeks and month. I'm really excited about it. Another thing we're working on that I'm super excited about is we're finally changing service advisories. Our service advisories aren't really helpful. And if ours aren't really helpful, yours probably aren't either, most likely. And so what we're going to do is just completely rewrite the script. And we're going to try to make them more about when we think the delay is going to clear up. We're going to try to put more timestamps on them. So it's not just like there's a major delay. Like, well, what does that mean? So something to look forward to and keep your eye on. And so all of this stuff I'm talking about is like relying on our customers to tell us what's wrong. But really at the end of the day, we shouldn't be doing that. Like we should really know what the pain points are ourselves. Yes, it's a great strategy that I've mastered, I think. But at the end of the day, like I want to get in front of it. And that was actually the capstone topic of, I worked through APTA leadership. This was my team, and we wrote an awesome report on how to reinvigorate a customer service culture. I'm going to have 2 QR codes letting you know coming up where you can download this information. So you might want to have your phone ready. So the idea of like, how can we find the pain points? Like, how can we like not have to have our writers scream at us, and so that we know what they are? First and foremost is our agencies have to have formal programs that mandate employees to be in the system, not just ride the system, but be in the system and to report back. You can do this through an internal ambassador program. Like BART has people that normally work at headquarters. They're the ones that come and help during bus bridges and navigate people. Or if we're rolling something new out, I know Sound Transit, they had once rolled out a forced transfer to riders that was going to be really impactful. And they made every employee that worked at headquarters take 5 volunteer shifts in their system. But you also have to create feedback loops. So if you're going to tell your people to be out in the system, how can they report issues? I found the perfect way at Maryland Transit. It's called the Mr. T program. Why is it called the Mr. T program? Because I pity the fool who doesn't write transit. No, that's not why, but I do. It's managers writing transit, Mr. T. And the idea is that managers will they have a special app just for their managers, and you take a journey, you take a ride, and you fill out from point to point. Was there anything wrong? Was there graffiti? What was the stop number? Does it need to be cleaned? How was your trip overall? And they also created just a report a single incident for those that just don't want to go through the whole journey. And I just think this is brilliant because it kind of gamifies it, and it's rich data. It's coming from your managers, for crying out loud. So this is something I would love to roll out at BART, and I just think it's such a great use case. Something I did roll out at BART and in the region is we started doing these really fun transit CEO ride-alongs, where I plan this multimodal trip, and all the CEOs are forced to take one system to the next, to the next, to the next, and we invite the public to come along, and then we end with a happy hour. We've done it twice. I love it. Why haven't we been doing this before? Something that you all can implement back at home also. The media loves it, and it's really popular on social media. You also have to have like internal mechanisms to motivate your employees, like to do better and to have better customer service. The best thing that when researching for our Capstone that we found was Cap Metro. They offer this super awesome online platform where you can like give badges to people, and it's like all gamified with like a leaderboard of who's leading in customer service and experience this week. So it's like the Peloton of internal customer service and external public customer service for transit agencies. So I love this. I would love to steal it. The vendor who supplies this is in our report, which I'll share a QR code in a second. Also, we just need to be hiring from the right, like pool of folks. For example, like retail and hospitality, those folks are like wired to put the customers first and to really like navigate hostile, interactions and how to like de-escalate situations. And so why are we not rewriting our job descriptions and minimum qualifications? And then why are we not marketing and hyper targeting on social media, those that are in retail and hospitality? Because we know that we can teach people to drive a bus. Like that's not necessarily the hard, we don't want to market towards people like, hey, have you ever wanted to drive a bus? Like instead, let's start to market towards people that are just people persons. Like I love this ad here from the Western Reserve Transit Authority. That's exactly what our industry needs to move towards. And then try to find new assessment tools that you can use during the hiring process where you role play to really see how people are wired when it comes to helping folks. I love MARTA. They have this, something they're working on right now is they're going to actually create all these videos and then share them with their frontline staff of like, this is how we want you to do it. And like a video is so powerful. And so another thing that our Capstone focused on was like, how do we measure customer service? It's so old school. I bet y'all are still using complaints per 100,000 boardings. I mean, that is so outdated and it only measures the negative. Or you're measuring how quickly, or you're measuring, your average response time. So it's like how quickly you can close a case, or like how quickly can I get this person off my back? And for the most part, we all know that when you close a case, rarely does it mean you've actually brought final resolution to the original complaint. It's usually someone sent off like an email and then you just close the case and you don't even know if it was ever handled. So those are the outdated methods. What we want transit agencies to move towards is what's on the right. So you need three things: the Net Promoter Score, which is a snapshot of your overall customer advocacy, a customer effort score, which is how your customers rate the basic functionality and ease of using your service, and a customer satisfaction score. You actually need all three. You don't need those other things on the other side, in my opinion. So most of those things you've probably heard of: customer satisfaction, yeah; Net Promoter, yeah; customer effort, it's sort of a new thing. So here's the first QR code. Then an APTA emerging leader cohort actually did all the work for you. That QR code will take you, they already like did the survey for you and the mathematical equation to like calculate the customer effort score. And the idea is to like measure the whole journey and where the pain points are. And then I took a deeper look, like even at BART, like we weren't even asking you if you like had problems setting up Clipper. And that's because BART doesn't run Clipper, but we weren't even asking. And that's like, you haven't even gotten on the train yet, and you've probably had a problem, and we weren't even asking you about it. So this was like a big wake up moment for me of like trying to get a customer effort score. So it's something we're working on. And then it'll give you like this look of like, well, how much, where are the pain points? And in this example, like all the pain points are before the ride. Like how sad is that? And it shows you like all those people are having problems before they even get on your bus or train or ferry. So this is where we need to focus our attention on, right? So I like to having this whole journey view. It helps you figure out where to spend your money. But all of these surveys that we all do, you're only communicating with your writers. So you're not tracking people who found your service too difficult to navigate, or they gave up, or they've never even tried it. And so for that, you need an annual reputational survey to the general population. These surveys are crazy expensive, but when we interviewed all the experts for our capstone, we learned of a great little workaround for that is just go beg like a local university, city, county, beg them and say, hey, the next survey you do to your folks, can we get 5 questions on that survey, or maybe even 3 questions on that survey? So that's a great way to save the money instead of having to do a general population survey. And then another really cool trend that I am so leaning into, and I highly encourage everyone to roll it out, is to offer a quick Rate My Ride tool. This is actually something like all these CEOs told us when we were researching for our capstone. They want something like this. They want the smiley face bathrooms signs. You don't necessarily need that, but it's something you can do. You can put a QR code on your bus or train to do it, or you can use your app. This picture is from Transit app. They have a Rate My Ride tool, which is also very fun and playful, but it's just a very quick way for people to measure just that one trip. And I promise you, while it's a lot of data and you may think it's overwhelming and what are you going to do with all data, it's going to show you trends over time. And it's probably going to be a lot more positive than things like how quickly you're closing a case and complaints for 100,000 boardings. And so look into this. Pittsburgh Regional Transit, I was told, is rolling out a Rate My Ride through QR codes. So keep an eye on them. And then Muni is using the Transit app and the Rate My Ride tool. And so I'm hoping both of them will do some great case studies next year so we can all learn from them. Another thing is, like, we're not measuring the human connection in these surveys. Dottie Watkins, we spoke to her, bravo to her, our new CEO at Cap Metro, so exciting. I love female leaders. She had like said, you know, how are we making people feel? We're not measuring that. Like, is your staff making your experience better or worse? So my recommendation, and how powerful would it be if every agency started to ask, were you greeted by staff during your journey? Such a simple thing as being greeted can change the experience. So that's something I'm hoping transit agencies can start asking or finding new ways to measure the human connection. Also, this concept of creating wow factor moments. So we're all trying to regain ridership and encourage advocacy and just demonstrate our value. The best way to do that is through wow factor moments. And so Foothill Transit, they told us they bought this double-decker bus, not because they needed the capacity, it's because of the wow factor. Like, the public loves it, families love it, and people get so excited to ride on it, and they pull out their cameras when it's coming up. That's how you know you've created a wow factor moment. Besides wow factor moments, there's this concept of memorable experiences, and we've all seen them, especially with holiday trains and holiday buses. But you know what? The holidays is 1 month out of, 12 months. So what are we doing outside of the holiday months that we've perfected it? It's so excited. It creates so much buzz. What about the rest of the year? We need to find ways to create these memorable experiences that are going to generate positive customer reactions. And what it does is it slowly changes the narrative about our role in the community when you do that. And so all of these concepts are from our capstone, Reinvigorating Customer Service Culture. Here's the QR code to download. We made a playbook as well as like a 10-page report, because that's what you have to do when you write a capstone. But this playbook that's pictured here is really kind of like what you need to do to like get your agency on track for prioritizing a customer-centric culture. So when I was learning about, when I was researching for the capstone, I learned that all MARTA execs are given a copy of this book, The Power of Moments, and I'm like obsessed with it. It has taught me so much about prioritizing moments and the financial value of it. It also had a ton of great internal comms tips that I've literally stolen and have implemented at BART even already, and they're great. It puts a financial value in the book on how most people spend all their time, like 80% of their effort, on like filling the potholes, like just responding to fire after fire after fire. Why are we spending 80% of our time doing that when really there's 9 times of value when it comes to finances? And I'll explain that in a minute. If you just take the time to elevate the positives instead of just focusing on all the negatives. And you do that by building peaks. And so what a peak is something that is all of a sudden so exciting that you want to pull out your camera. They give this great example of this hotel. It's not a fancy hotel, but it has amazing reviews, all because of one thing, a popsicle hotline. You pick up the phone, you ask for a popsicle, and they bring it to you for free. Like, that's something that we're not going to give out popsicles on transit, but there's like little things that you can do. And I just love this concept. Or breaking the script. So the Ritz-Carlton stories highlighted in the book, it's this idea that this kid lost his lovey, and instead of the Ritz-Carlton just mailing it back, they actually made this amazing photo display of all of the fun things Joshie was doing when they returned it, and the story went completely viral. Like, that's something we can do in transit. It's extremely relatable story that we can implement. Something that's so small that you could do is just allow staff to do random giveaways. We know we can't give everyone something free. And so the idea of what's the financial value of a good surprise is, the book talks about Southwest Airlines and actually puts a dollar figure. The data experts dug through it. And if you were on a plane that has the cheeky safety announcements, you are more likely to buy one half a flight more than next year than customers who were on a plane that didn't have the cheeky free. That's free. There's nothing expensive about it, making cheeky, funny announcements, and that they were generating $140 million more in revenue because of the free. I keep saying free because it doesn't cost anything to make a funny announcement. I just think that's so powerful. Another point in the book is that there was a survey about to customers about how satisfied or dissatisfied you are with their service. And 25% of the positive encounters were actually the employee's response to a service failure. That's like amazing. It's the ability to turn like a crappy situation into a better situation that is definitely relatable in transit. So it just gives me so much inspiration to learn, like, hey, if something's bad, how can we make it a little bit better through good communication? And that's going to then turn into a peak. Like, that's brilliant. And so after learning all of this, I realized I have created memorable moments at BART. For example, we purchased 4 of these short story dispensers, put them in our stations. They're free short stories. And not only that, we held a short story writing contest and filled all the content at a cost of only $8,500 per dispenser. We have a very big budget, so it's something so small, such a surprise and delight to get a free short story while waiting for your train. We also brought a vintage arcade to one of our stations for 1 week, only cost $5,000. People loved it. There were lines of families. Everyone, of course, is taking pictures. Or what do you think this line is? This line is like, looks like it's like people waiting to go into like, the hottest new ride at Disneyland. No, it was for a board meeting. That line was to get into a mobile board meeting that we held at our Hayward shops. 200 people attended. This is on a Thursday at 10 a.m. And most of the attendees were under the age of 25 and had never attended a board meeting ever. So what a great way to offer people an inside glimpse and to bring them in and to show them something behind the scenes. So think about doing a mobile board meeting instead of something in your boardroom. I also want agencies to start offering like really useful amenities and develop family programs like the subway sleuths and the epic treasure hunt. I love this bus Storytime in Anchorage. How adorable is this? Create immersive experiences where you actually there's music on the bus. It's taking you to the bus, to the music concert. There's a rap about the music. I love that idea. We've been famous for our BART merch. I even made the Wall Street Journal because of it. So check out railgoods.com. And we even put our merch like in the digital places. So I just love this concept that we went on Animal Crossing and we offered the shirt in Roblox. It's another great way to engage youth. We love to feature all of the fun animals at BART. And so not only do these stories go viral and like make big news like Morning Edition, but we take it a step further. We're on Twitch doing live streams and we've like leaned into it like World Frog Day because BART has these frogs on our system. And we even have anime mascots that we're going to be unveiling very soon at Fanime conference. And I can even give you a little sneak peek of the 2 animals related. And you can see they are a goat and a hawk. So it all ties back. Follow us on TikTok. This is our strategy of trying to connect with Gen Z. feed those urban planners. We have a collaboration coming up with City Skylines with official BART content. So get excited about that. We have a book club we're about to launch. And then super quickly to wrap are some of my leadership tips for you. Things like empowering your employees to speak. Never pass in a meeting. I can't stand when someone says pass, like please share something. And it's really important to help others succeed, because then they're going to help you later. And that's really how I've been able to reach where I've been. And then have a bias towards action. Like that's so powerful. Instead of just explaining like why you don't want to do something, like try to always come with like, well, let's move this project forward. And the way to do that is if you study issues to understand counter arguments to your own beliefs and opinions, you actually get like way smarter when you listen to the other side. I promise you it's going to help in the long run. And then just sometimes you've got to take that hit, right? And hire people smarter than you. That's what I have done. Ride tons of transit. And I just want to thank my whole team. These are also our BART contractors, because again, never take credit for other people's work and always give love and shout outs to your whole team. Okay. And I know we've got to go. I got to stop talking, and that's it. Stop sharing. Sorry. I have lots of stories.
You are not short of stories ever, and I think that's a big part of your success, Alicia. So thank you so much. We definitely had a lot of comments in the chat and some questions. As I'm looking through the questions, I want to start off with one. What is BART's system for evaluating an idea? I mean, we just went through 50, maybe more. Is there a documented approach to say, hey, this is working or this is not? Does it vary? Just any thoughts on that?
Typically, if it's within a department's budget, they can sort of do it. We do go through a long process of developing like 2-year work plans and 4-year work plans, where you really have to elevate it to the executive level and you get kind of the nod, yes or no. One really amazing tool to use is a high-level impact assessment, where you actually show like that it's what projects are at the lowest cost, but at the higher rider impact. And it's a great way to advance a project that you haven't been able to, is to show like it's in with that sweet spot of cost versus value. So look up high level impact assessment and do it if you're trying to advance a project that you just haven't been able to yet.
Perfect. We had a question from Rachel early on when you were talking about using visuals from the public. I think everyone loves participation with the public. Does BART have a policy for compensating members of the public who are making maps materials? Is that something that could be done in the future? Or where do you kind of see the evolution of general user created content?
Yeah, no, so I love that you brought that up, because y'all can't be stealing things and then not compensating for them, or like just downloading someone's map and then using them. We've actually seen that happen in the last few months, not at BART. And so we do pay people if we want them to create something for us, or someone was taking fabulous photos. We reached out and be like, can we just pay for your photos? So you should pay for them. Now with that map example, we didn't use Fern's map. It was just the idea that, but like, had we wanted to, absolutely slip into their DMs and be like, how can we compensate you for that? Absolutely.
Amazing. So as I was, one of the things that I admire so much about you, as I was getting ready for this, I was watching news clips with you, and you are always on the phone, in the newsroom, at the station, talking to people. So with this question from Vin, what's the point of excursion fairs anyway? I saw some amazing clips of you talking to those with a face that was slightly more.
No, there really is a purpose. I understand why they implemented it, like 50 years ago. It's for people that are just riding for fun. And there's actually a lot of families like with little kids, and they're entering the same station to ride, and then exiting the same station. So they wanted to charge for these like tourist trips almost. And they also over time became a way to crack down on several versions of fare evasion or people that were breaking parking rules. And so it was just a heavy lift to say, that's great, those are all real good reasons, but we need to stop. And even there's the idea of doing a grace period, which is sort of like first phase of like, we could offer grace period, but there's also talk of like, should we just end it? And then what's the worst thing that could happen is that some families get free rides with their toddlers. I mean, is that really like the worst thing? But, officially, like my BART line officially on that is that, there is a need for an excursion fare. People do take these types of trips, but there should absolutely be a grace period. And no, it shouldn't be 15 minutes. I had to fight that too and that it had to be 30 minutes, because guess what? Our headways are 30 minutes, should actually be longer, but there's a lot of negotiating involved.
Well, as an Angelino who has often gotten on Muni when I thought I was getting on BART, I thank you very much, or vice versa. Those fares can be a pain. So one question we had was, how do you make sure the online complaints requests are equitable to the actual demographics of those riding BART?
That the online I don't say that again.
I think I think it's
like which ones I prioritize to fix. Maybe that's what.
How are we making?
Whose voice are we listening to? That's
Yes.
that's a great question. Great call out. There's probably not a way to make sure they're equitable right now. We should probably find a system that allows for that. And part of that is doing outreach like in unexpected places. Sometimes not necessarily at your station. Sometimes it means going to a school and listening to young people. And so we have been trying to do things like that more frequently. And also, even as we talk about equity, just this concept of paying people to be on advisory committees, our Link 21 program, which I encourage you all to look into. It's truly the future of BART. We have an equity task force and every member that's on it is getting compensated, which I think is great. It's a great first step towards making sure there's equitable outcomes and reimbursing people for their thoughts and their lived experience. I mean, that's so important.
As someone who worked, as a communications coordinator at a transit agency, I can say that with all the important messaging around gaslighting, it can be very emotionally draining to be that person who is hearing, I just missed my bus, I don't know when the next train's coming, all these things. And so I'm curious, you run an amazing team. Sung, I know in particular, gave an amazing presentation at APTA last month. Do you ever have situations where your team is asking you how to better handle the volume of information that they have to put out? Is there anything you recommend to people at agencies where there might not be as much ability to communicate so freely all the time about how to keep a good head on your shoulders when handling, or being the face of misconnections, mistrips, and making better transit?
I think it's always just coming from an empathetic point of view instead of saying like, oh, well, had you checked your phone, you would have seen your train was coming. And so really it's like before it was like, you've kind of blamed them like, well, that looks like you arrived at the wrong time. And so it's giving them permission to be like, yeah, that's horrible. I'm so sorry. And right now we have 30-minute headways because we can't afford anything more, and that's terrible. But also giving them permission to not always have to reply. Like some MTA, like some bigger agencies, they have like huge amount of staff to reply to people like we don't at BART. And I still think everyone would say BART's Twitter account is probably the most responsive and awesome. And we don't even have one full-time employee. Like Sung doesn't even do his entire full-time. It's like me and him. So it's also learning which ones like should be replied to and try to navigate, it's using your resources well and wisely and having it work in your favor. And instead of replying, doing it as a quote tweet so everyone sees it. That's how you can reach a lot of people. And like if everyone's pounding you for a delay, like quote tweet something, and then you sort of like you've just answered 20 other people's questions by quote tweeting it instead of replying to it. So there's some strategy, some simple strategy you can use there to reach more people without having to literally reply to 20 people about why the train's not there yet.
Well, thanks. I have a question from Andrew that I'm sure isn't the easiest answer, but Alicia, how is your customer service approach faring in the face of union culture?
Yeah, I mean, that's something you learn along the way. And boy, have I learned it. I mean, it was not easy to all of a sudden join an agency with a union culture. And I said the wrong thing sometimes. I cried sometimes because I realized I said the wrong thing. And part of it is just that one of my leadership tips was learn when to take a hit, I didn't realize that those were the wrong words. And then you just learn from that and never use those words again. And so it's not easy. It's one of the things that you really know that it takes time and that you're never going to get it overnight. But part of it is also like getting out in the system and talking to frontline employees. And that's made me such a better spokesperson, because listening to how they describe things and then trying to implement that in my communication approach goes a long way. And they hear it. Like, I know the union leadership, and they're like, oh, that's what we were saying. And now Alicia's saying it. So that's a great tip of how to, or use them as an example in a speech, you know, like you just use their first name or something like that. So I love that you called that out, because that is like a day-to-day, like real life transit, you know, thing you have to learn how to deal with. But I've stepped in it before. I mean, we all will. So it's how do you recover from it? Apologizing, reframing it, never doing that again, then teaching everyone else that works for you, this is how we're going to say it moving forward, changing those, you know, templates, making sure you share it across the district. So really learning from it and recovering. It's all about the recovering from a bad experience, right? Hopefully that's one of your key takeaways from this presentation.